Hi, my name is Rupi, and today I have a special guest with me for our podcast. This is Breakfast with Rupi, and it's my friend Les. Welcome, Les.
Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, Les, I'm in Abbotsford, BC. Les, why don't you let us know where you are today?
Right now, I am sitting in Spruce Grove, Alberta, about 15 minutes west of Edmonton.
And you just told me it's -1 degrees out there, right?
It's -1, yes.
Right.
We have flurries overnight.
Wow. And how long have you been out there for?
2.5 years.
Okay. So a little bit about Les and I. We have known each other for many years. I think it's almost close to 20 years, I want to say. Maybe 18 years. What do you think?
About 18 years, yep.
Right? Yeah, and today we're going to talk about our personal and professional journey. Let's start off in the beginning. I used to be a social worker, and I still remember Joyce and Les coming in and bringing in one of their youth to talk about a situation that wasn't working at home. And Les kind of told me about Cyrus Centre. Les, do you mind sharing with us what Cyrus Centre is?
Sure. So Cyrus Centre was created 20 years ago to fill a void, a gap that existed in the Fraser Valley. And we provide everything from emergency shelter, emergency housing for youth 12 to 18. We have a resource center that's open during the day where youth can get meals. And these are for youth who don't have home as a safe, viable option. We also now have shelter for youth 19 to 24 as well. We have different housing programs for youth. We have a house for boys, which is staffed by a house parent model in Abbotsford. We also have 2 houses for newcomer youth in our community who need extra support in getting ready to live independently in our community. So we wrap around different supports in the community, teach them how to use those supports and get them acclimatized to Abbotsford. And then we also have an apartment for girls in Abbotsford. And then out in Chilliwack, we have the same thing as far as the shelters go. And then we have a 22-bed apartment building for youth living in it's a low to medium barrier program that includes everything from life skills. We have therapists. We have all variety of different supports that come to the building. And again, all our programs are staffed by caring individuals who really want to see a difference being made in young people's lives.
And so you said you have 2 locations, Abbotsford and Chilliwack, you said, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's 22 beds in Chilliwack?
As far as the apartment goes. And then shelter bed wise, I think we have, I want to say it's 20. Right. And in Abbotsford, it's 16.
Okay. And I think when I first met you, you guys just had 1 bed at Cyrus Centre, right? I think, or you were in process to have 1 bed.
Yeah, correct. We didn't have the all the clearances and permits and zoning from the city. So we were limited. Actually, it was 2 beds. We were limited to how many beds we could provide. And then the city of Abbotsford was amazing to work with. And we were able to get some of the restrictions lifted and start providing emergency housing for youth.
Right. I remember one time we were at an event and you were the guest speaker and you shared a story, and I'm kind of hoping that you could share that story with our viewers today.
Sure. Cyrus Centre was created in part so youth wouldn't have to experience what I experienced as a child growing up, or if they were experiencing it, they had a safe place to go to receive help. I grew up in a violent home. The man who I thought was my dad was extremely violent and abusive. to our mother. First, just to our mother. However, he'd also make us watch at times as he abused her, including breaking her arm in front of us and in a door, or just yeah, he was brutal. He brutalized her. It wasn't just abusing her. He brutalized her. He literally beat the life out of her to the point where she no longer lived. She just existed. She wasn't able to function as a regular, person. She lost her ability to parent and look after us as children. He actually left the day before my 10th birthday, and which was probably the best thing that ever happened. Prior to that, there were incidences where where I was told not to open the door for him, and he would be raging on the other side of the door, and where he would finally kick the door open and then come in, and the first person I remember he saw was me. I was about 5 or 6.
Right.
And he hit me so hard I went flying off the couch, and then I left a big indent in the wall. And then he proceeded to go beat my mother. I remember my sister coming home from school and finding me at my mother's side, and she was barely conscious, and her taking me out of the room, and she started tending to my mom. We were always told never tell anybody. Don't talk to anybody about it. And even then there wasn't. I remember police attending our house and typically siding with him versus.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And it was, I mean, there was times she was literally knocked unconscious where I thought she was dead. There was a time we were all sitting down for dinner, and I remember my sister and I were sitting side by side talking to it. My sister's 8 years older than I. We were sitting there talking, I don't know about what, but something that siblings would talk about. And he got up casually from his chair, walked around the table behind us, says, you're not supposed to talk at the table. And he took both of our heads and he put our faces in our soup. And our mom was like screaming at him, telling him to stop. And he flipped the whole table over and everything was on the floor. And he grabbed my mom, threw her on the floor and told her to clean it up. And when she was done, he took her in the basement and beat her with an axe handle. It was brutal. So when he left, I had a younger brother now too. He was 4 years younger than I was. Our mom wasn't able to look after her. She was now addicted to different prescription medications. And back then, they weren't run through computers. And
right.
She was able to have prescriptions from different pharmacies and doctors across town. Basically, everything that we had was sold to meet her addiction. And so I ended up becoming a street kid at 10 years old. I'd come home at night at first, but I'd be gone during the day. I would steal bottles off of people's porches to cash them in so my brother and I could get something to eat. I'd steal clothing off people's clotheslines for my brother and I. I remember we lived in East Vancouver, and there was this warehouse. It was a commercial bakery where they used to bake donuts that were sold in stores that were in packages. And they used to have the back door open and them on these racks for cooling. And I used to sneak in and grab them and take them home. And things just started to escalate where I was being bullied at school. I didn't have someone to talk to help with that. My sister by this time had left. She had left and she had moved to California.
Oh, wow.
And which she was able to do, and I don't blame her. I got involved in the system. I mean, I got exposed to things that I wouldn't have been exposed to had we had a functioning home. My being out in the streets led to me experiencing sexual violence, also sexual abuse, and I got taken into care. It was weird because my brother didn't until later. I got taken into care, and as much as I hated it, it was probably the best thing that happened. And I had a youth worker, and I had a social worker, and I had a police officer who really cared. As much as I didn't want to listen to them, or I trusted them. They were the only adults I trusted, and yeah, they were always there for me. And of course, I got caught up in the criminal justice system as a kid. So I was on probation, and there's times when I breached my probation, and I'd have to go answer for that. And my youth worker, his parents had this big Cadillac, and I remember asking him one time. I said, "I'll turn myself in only if you get your parents' Cadillac and drive me as if you're my chauffeur." And he agreed, and I sat in the back, and he drove me to juvie, and he came out and he opened the door, and I walked. It was, yeah,
That's
kind
pretty
of silly, but but yeah, they never gave up on me. And even though I gave them lots of reason to give up on me, they probably could have spent their time better elsewhere, but they didn't. And it really, really made a difference. I never felt like I was a number on a referral sheet or whatever, or a case file. They really, yeah, they did little things, and that just made a difference. And yeah, and we're always there.
That,
So,
it really speaks to my background in early childhood education. And we talk about children needing boundaries. And then when a child has been traumatized, they're going to keep pushing boundaries to make sure you're safe. So it seems like you kept pushing boundaries to make sure these people in your life were consistent and making sure you were safe. You wanted to know that they were safe people to be around.
oh, definitely. And it was, yeah, it was what I wanted to replicate when we started Cyrus. And part of Cyrus, for instance, we work closely with our police force, especially with APD. And I always talk to the staff, like, we want to have relationships with everyone, not just with the youth that we work with, but also the other service providers that are going to be involved in these kids' lives. And it's been really cool to see the response, for instance, from APD, with the different youth squad officers or whatever. They have they play a real caring role in these kids' lives. Same thing with social workers at MCFD. We work at developing a relationship. Let's meet that person who's on the other end of the phone that we're talking to. Variety of different youth workers. And I mean, the majority are actually our own staff that are walking alongside these kids in different ways and supporting them in the community. And sometimes we're the best thing that's happening in that kid's life. And it's kind of sad because I think we never should be the best thing that's happening in that kid's life. But when, there's times when some accomplishment they have, and they come running to us to tell us about, hey, I got an A on my test, or I got this job, or I'm graduating, or they've come back later, hey, I'm engaged, or, different, or we've had youth come back who, completed culinary school and wanted to come in and bake and cook for staff and the youth, or
Oh,
youth who've started their own business,
right.
um, or homeowners. It's been really neat to see what's happened in over the 20 years. Um, Thousands of youth have come through our doors, and not all have been success stories. There's been lots of tragedy
Mm-hmm.
involved as well. The opiate epidemic has really impacted. We've lost a lot of youth since 2020. The amount of youth that have perished due to overdoses is more than the previous 16 years prior to that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's there's a lot of sadness, a lot of tragedy, but there's been lots of success, and that's what keeps the fire burning with the staff, as far as working to make that difference in kids' lives. And it's one kid at a time.
mm-hmm.
um, and one of the things that's unique, I think, about us, we look at each child that comes to our doors as an individual. So we will structure our service based on that youth and their needs. So it's more
Mm-hmm.
individualized. Like even with life skills, it's not that we set this life skills training and we'll have 10 youth come and participate in life skills. And some of the youth might already know these things that we're talking about. And it's
Right.
like, okay, where are they lacking? So we individualize it to that person's needs directly, versus having this group thing where people may or may not be needing that portion of it.
Right.
So yeah, it's very individualized, our support.
Which is huge because you kind of need to have an individualized care plan for each child depending on their situation. Like I have a couple questions. I'm just
Mhm.
curious. I want to circle back. Like you said, you lived in East Vancouver and you went into care. So can I ask, like, how many years were you in care, and where were you? Were you in Abbotsford or Vancouver when you were in care?
Vancouver. I was in
Okay.
Vancouver. Um, yeah, so I was brought into care when I was 15,
Mm-hmm.
then discharged from care when I was 17, because then you're considered an adult at 18,
Okay.
right? So yeah, so once you turned 18, that was back then, that was when you could be charged as an adult and all things. So yeah, but I was in and out of care a lot too, because I was, or not in and out of
Yeah.
care, I was in and out of um programs because I'd go AWOL or run away, or so
I think if I recall, you went to a couple of few, like quite a few homes, right? At that time.
uh, yeah, so I was never in a foster home. I
Okay.
was in I was
Group
in
home.
group homes, and yeah,
Okay.
including one
So
out in Langley.
I guess, and the thing is, like, do you still talk to any of your family members right now?
And to my family members,
Yeah. Do you talk to any of them?
yep, I have a good relationship with um, my sister and my brother,
Okay.
um, and we talk quite regularly,
Okay.
and yeah.
So what made you come to Abbotsford and open Cyrus Centre? How did you get there?
So we moved to Abbotsford. Funny enough, we didn't want our kids going to high school in Surrey,
Okay.
and so we moved to Abbotsford. I was working in Surrey at the time, and so I would commute back and forth. And then I started working in Abbotsford. And one day at work, my supervisor came to me and says, "Would you mind helping move some boxes in the file room?" And I said, "Sure." And so I did. And one box caught my attention, and it said "Safe House Meeting Minutes." And I asked,
Okay.
I said, "Hey, can I take these to my desk and just go through it?" And because we didn't have a safe house or anything in it, I was there at the time. And she said, sure. And so I looked, and there was 10 years worth of meeting minutes in this box. And I was like, how could they be talking about and meeting about this need for youth for 10 years and still nothing has happened?
Hmm.
And I remember talking to my colleague about it as well, not Joyce.
Yeah.
And then the Abbotsford had its first point in time homeless count.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the homeless count included them doing interviews with people on the streets, like doing focus groups.
Yeah.
So with youth, we ended up doing 2 focus groups just because the number. So there was quite a few youth. And so myself and Joyce got to sit in on these focus groups with the youth while the people that were in charge of the count were asking the questions. And this group that we had was very diverse and of youth. I mean, every hairstyle from mohawks to blue hair to gender to ethnicity. And so they talked, and they asking them questions. And one of the questions they said, give us your top 5 needs.
Okay.
What are your top 5 needs? And so what came out, actually, I rattled them off in my head, what I thought was their top 5 needs. And part of it lined up, but not all of it. And so they said, we need a place that we can get a shower. How do you go to school, look for work, or do anything when you smell and you're dirty, you stink? They said the only place is the rec center, and you have to pay to go and use it. And then on the same vein, yeah, and laundry. We need access to laundry too, because our clothes are all dirty and everything, and it smells like, and third on their list was food. That made my list for them, not the first 2. Yeah. And fourth on their list was, they said, we want to go to a place where we can talk to adults, but where they're going to actually listen to us, not just tell us what they're going to do, but actually listen to us and not judge us.
Right.
And then fifth on their list was shelter. So remember Joyce, she ran to her church and talked to her pastor and said, hey, this is what the youth are saying. Why can't we do this? And the pastor said, well, great idea, great needs, but this isn't something for a church to do. If anything, it's something that the church should do in the community. And she came back to me and she says, do you think we can make this work? And I said, well, I actually already have in my drawer drawn up plans for it. And we talked and we met with various churches. We met with various individuals, businesses, and so on. And we also talked to the media about the needs. And we did that, and 2 brothers came forward and they made a $10,000 donation.
Wow.
And they said, hey, we want to see you guys get this off the ground and, make a difference. And so I ended up quitting my job and started heading this up. And my wife and I talked about this, and we said, we can't make this work, in the next 3 months. We're going to probably need the same services that you guys are planning on doing. And then within that 3 months, we're able to raise our first year's budget through donations.
That's amazing.
It was. And so we opened our doors, and we have been able to operate with that model ever since. We always have 1 year's budget in the bank. So moving forward, even though our budget keeps climbing,
right,
with more services, like Joyce and I were the first staff at Cyrus Centre, and then it grew from there. Now we have between 60 and 70 staff on board, and we're always operating with that 1 year budget in advance. So we're always fundraising a year in advance. And that has allowed us to be sustainable.
You have 70 staff?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That, oh my goodness, I just got like tingles. Oh my, that is like incredible because when I first met you, it was just you and Joyce. Like, how incredible is that?
It's yeah, it's been an amazing journey. We saw our and that number represents everything from frontline staff to administrative staff now. Um, you know, um, oh, what, on the tip of my tongue, relief
Yeah.
practicum students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we have a lot of practicum students. Probably the majority of them come from UFE,
Okay.
but also they've come from Douglas College and UBC, SFU, CBC, Trinity, yeah, all over, and it's kind of neat. I think of one staff that's still with us, and he started off as a practicum student
Right.
with us, and after his practicum, he said, I think I want to stay here, and he
Oh,
started to volunteer.
okay.
Now he's our Chilliwack director,
That's
13 years later.
amazing.
Um, and yeah, so it's kind of neat to see, went from practicum to volunteer to part-time staff, full-time
Yeah.
staff in the house role. And like I say, now he's a very valuable part of our leadership team. And yeah, that happened with another one too. She was a practicum, and then she volunteered, and then she became a summer student, part-time student, and then she was full-time. And then she became director our Abbotsford director,
Okay.
and traveled the same route until the love of her life lured her out to Ontario, and she left. So, but it's kind of neat to see volunteers, practicum students have gone through and become staff, and I think part of it is just is the is how we treat people. That relationship we want with youth is the same relationship we want with other service providers, with donors, with neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
We try to have a relationship with our neighbors, so if there is a complaint of some sort, they're talking to us about it instead of
Right.
Yeah, so it's a format. I think that those are the two key things, is how the way we budget our fundraise is a year in advance, and the relationship piece that's allowed us to be sustainable. And now with the housing pieces, we actually have government money to operate the housing programs that we have.
Yeah, like you've done like a full circle, like for children, for youth in our community. I'm just curious, like when you were in that situation, like what made you move forward? How did you have the capacity to say, you know what, I'm going to be okay? What were your thoughts? What was happening?
Well, what happened actually was I was working in a totally different field. I was working in a steel mill, and I had an accident and had my right leg, ankle area all reconstructed. And so I couldn't work, and the doctors told me not to go back to that kind of work. And so I went out and did I had a rehabilitation worker, and went out and did some tests and studies to see what would be, and everything came back to the social services field. And back then it was great because they paid for me to go to school. They paid for everything I needed, from books to tape recorders to whatever needs, supplies there were. And then with my first job, they even subsidized the wage for the employer. And yeah, I just wanted to give youth a chance, an opportunity that I didn't. have,
Right.
and to try and make a difference, try and create something that I wish I had when I was.
And that was actually my next question is, did you ever think when you were a child and a youth, like, how did I get here, and how, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. Like, how can we change this? Like, did that ever come to you that you're going to make a difference at that time?
Um, as a youth, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. There was a place that I didn't mention. I used to go. There used to be a drop-in center on Commercial Drive,
Okay.
and it was called Vancouver Free University Drop-in,
Okay.
and it was run by a group of hippies, basically, with tons of books. And then I used to go in there and read books of poetry and play. I used to play chess with whoever would want to play chess and drink tea and eat cookies. And it was a place I'd go to when I was supposed to be in school.
Right.
At school, I'd go to, I wouldn't have a lunch or
Yeah.
being bullied. And it was like, so that was my safe place to go to.
Okay.
And
Now, what if you had an opportunity, what would you tell your younger self?
it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's not your fault. And what was told to me once, not that long ago too, was, you got this. And it was, it came. So what your listeners may not know, likely don't know, 5 years ago, I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and worked with a speech pathologist and a variety of different. I actually had 9 different caregivers that worked with me. Kinesiologist, physiotherapist, therapist, an occupational therapist, doctor, neurology, neuro-optometrist, a variety of audiologists, and there was a lot of struggles that I had with that, and I still continue with some of them. Words can be sometimes a struggle for me in getting them out where I get
Mhm.
stuck, and my ears and my eyes are impacted forever. So I have audio and visual or ocular processing disorder and stuff. But anyways, it was during this time, and I was really struggling, and it was actually during a counseling session,
Okay.
and the therapist said to me, she said, "You got this." And I was really, and I don't remember a time in my life where someone ever said that to me before. Not saying it
Mhm.
didn't hasn't been said, but I
Right.
don't remember it. And it was said with such sincerity, that I believed her. In fact, I have it tattooed on my left arm, so I can
Oh,
see
do
it.
you?
Yeah, every day I can hold up my arm. And it says, "I've got this."
Can we see it?
It's yeah,
That is
it's
so neat.
but um yeah, and but to say that to my younger self, that yeah, you've got this, you're going to be okay,
Yeah.
and it's not your fault.
And do you ever find, like, when, like, in all these years with the Cyrus Centre and a youth coming into your doors, do you ever feel like you get triggered back to your childhood?
Um, Not triggered in a negative way, but
Okay.
in empathetic way.
Yeah.
Like, even though it's my childhood is so long ago, um, there are definitely similarities, with what youth experience now as well, and just to be able to yeah, listen to them. It's really, to let them be heard,
Mm-hmm.
and know it's okay to talk to someone
Right.
as well, is really what I want to do. I just want them to have that safe place.
Right.
And I think Cyrus Centre creates that safe place. There are so many caring and individual persons at Cyrus Centre. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Cyrus Centre, it's been a gift to the youth, to our community in Abbotsford. There's definitely been happening there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If there was anything that you'd want to give to the listeners, any kind of advice, what would you say to them? Like if somebody was going through what you were going through when you were a youth, what would you tell them?
Even if it was a long time ago that you may have experienced, trauma in your childhood or whatever, if you haven't talked to someone about it, find someone that you can talk to about it. I waited a really long time to talk to someone about it, and it was such a release. And yeah, that's what happened or may have happened. It's not your fault.
Right.
As a child, it's not your fault if you had an abusive father or mother, or you didn't do anything wrong. And please, yeah, find someone now that you can talk to, because there are some great people out there that are willing to listen.
And Les, you just validated the importance of like trauma can happen any time of your life, but it's so important to you have to go through it to get past it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Well, thank you for your time, Les. And I really appreciate that you took time out of your day to come and talk to me. And you know what? If you help that one person to move forward, I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Well, thanks, Rupi. Thanks for that opportunity. And yeah, you keep doing an amazing job that you're doing and bringing the issues to people so they know. So
Okay,
thanks.
thanks, Mark.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.